Welcome back. This week, a 3-judge panel on the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco unanimously upheld non-disclosure rules that allow the FBI to secretly issue surveillance orders for customer data to communications firms on the grounds that they do not violate the First Amendment. Ken, is it time we take privacy more seriously in this country?
So the original question was, is it time we demand the government take our privacy more seriously? I'm probably going to shock you with this answer. No. It is not time for the government to take our privacy more seriously. It's time for us to take our privacy more seriously. All right.
Spoken like a true libertarian.
Well, that's not even coming from a libertarian perspective. That's coming from an IT perspective. All right? Because I know what is possible as far as intercepting communications across the internet. I know how easy it is to do. You know, I can just go to a public Wi-Fi, drop my laptop on the network, and just start capturing credentials all I want for people's social media accounts. It's time that people start taking that stuff more serious. Because if you start focusing on your own security, focusing on your own privacy, it ain't going to matter whether the FBI is issuing orders to capture your data. I mean, they might get your data at rest in like your email account or something like that. They're not going to be able to know what's in your internet traffic, not if you're taking the proper steps to protect yourself.
What about when you have people who might not have taken these certain steps and this information is within these communications firms and they have a hold of it?
Okay.
And the government is trying to request without warrant that these firms turn the information over to them.
Now, without warrant, I'm going to say without a warrant, that's absolutely ludicrous. With a warrant, yes, that's fine. If you know, there are cases where that's perfectly legitimate. There are cases where you absolutely need to try to pull that information. But like I said, at the same time, you need to take personal steps.
Yeah, the thing is, these surveillance orders are secretly issued. They're issued
Sure.
without warrants, and what they do is they essentially put a gag order on the firms. They can't disclose that the government's come in and they've taken these customers' information that they entrusted to that company to protect.
There's a good reason though for the gag orders. All right, and yes, this is very surprising coming from me. But let me tell you why you want those gag orders. All right, because you don't want the person that is under law enforcement surveillance, you don't want them to know that they're under surveillance. You don't want
even if that surveillance is warrantless.
That's a different topic. All right, the whole unwarranted search and seizure is a completely different topic that we could probably put an entire segment on. But when it comes to actually doing the law enforcement search, doing the law enforcement interception, all right, you don't want the person to know that they're under surveillance if it's a legal search. All right, I'm putting the whole warrant aspect aside for now. But you don't want them to know, because if they do know and they aren't taking steps to encrypt themselves and they are doing stuff that's illegal, well, guess what? They're going to take steps so that you can't monitor them anymore. That's why you don't want them to know. Also, you don't want them to know what methods you're using to surveil them.
Ken, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. I've heard that quote before.
Yep.
So we take, as individuals, pay more attention to our security, assuming that
Right.
we have the technical prowess to do so. Because I would argue that a lot of people that are on social media, if not the large majority, don't have the skills or the understanding to do that. And while companies like Microsoft and Google have half-heartedly strayed into that, and mostly on the business side, from a personal side, they're not doing anything. But my point is, the government or whomever is trying to hack, if we up the ante here, they're going to up the ante, and it's going to be a constant battle, isn't it?
Right.
And a perfect example of that is what happened last year during the middle of the presidential election involving the San Bernardino terrorists and the iPhone that the government wanted Apple to crack. Obviously, Apple encrypts their their customers' data very well, and it's because people put their entire lives on their iPhones. And if Apple would have created this backdoor and given it to the FBI, they could have used that to access blanket information on a whole bunch of people, and God forbid it got into the wrong hands, more nefarious than the FBI. That would have been awful. Obviously, the FBI.
So did you just say more nefarious than the FBI? You think the FBI is nefarious?
I mean, sometimes the government surveillance could be nefarious, but obviously there are definitely operators worse than the FBI.
Okay.
You know, and let me say this. So we're looking at all this from a perspective of, you know, law enforcement and issuing these gag orders and all that. But, you know, to go back to the personal security ones, personal privacy. Why you need to worry about personal privacy is not the FBI. Why you need to worry about personal privacy is the black hat hacker who breaks into your ISP and steals all of your records from the ISP, steals all your email from your ISP. All right? That is why you need to worry about privacy. All right? Now, being protected from excessive searches by the government, that's just a side benefit. The main thing is people have got to start worrying about themselves from a privacy and security perspective. And yeah, it is an endless cat and mouse game because encryption keeps getting better and people start working to crack the encryption more. But at the end of the day, if you take the correct steps, it's going to take them years to decode your data, and by then it's not going to matter.
So from a practical perspective, and this is not the point of this discussion tonight, but as an IT person that's very involved in security, give me 3 things that individuals should do to increase the level of protection on their data.
Well, you know what? I'm just going to give you the top thing. The best thing is if you wouldn't put it on the front page of a newspaper, don't put it on the internet. That is the #1 thing.
Okay.
So are you saying don't do any online shopping with your credit card?
Be very leery about it. All right. There's a reason I have identity theft protection, because I don't completely trust the websites that I do business with. I have transferred that risk to my identity protection company instead of me carrying that risk.
Okay. And what about, say, registering to vote online? Something that's with the government. Would you be concerned at all about that?
Well, at this point, I'd assume every government record is probably compromised anyway. But, you know, I wouldn't do it, especially...
So your argument for safety is not about how you equip your PC or your device. So you're not talking about virtual private networks or that type of thing. You're talking about just using restraint in terms of what you put on the internet.
You know what the most secure computer is? Some people tell me the most secure computer is one that's not plugged in, not connected to anything. I disagree. Most secure computer is one that's been incinerated and you can never recover any data off of.
Okay. And on that note, up next, our panel takes a look at this week's winners and losers. We're back in 3 minutes with that report.